Today, I'm flying Air Canada's Embraer E175 in business class from Montreal to Chicago, a short 2-hour flight across the Great Lakes. Or so I thought. Just as I was lining up for security, I received the dreaded notification. My flight was cancelled due to crew scheduling issues. This news hit hard because this wasn't just any flight, it was my positioning flight for a Japan Airlines first class redemption. For those unfamiliar, a positioning flight is a separately booked trip to an airport with better award availability, allowing you to maximize your miles. Missing this flight meant jeopardizing my long-haul first-class plans, so I had to make it to Chicago today, no matter what. My mind was racing. Should I book a $600 United economy flight? What if Air Canada rebooked me for tomorrow, too late for my JAL flight? Thankfully, 5 minutes later, I got a new itinerary. Montreal to Toronto to Chicago. Not ideal, but beggars can be choosers. Still, I was worried. What if these flights also got cancelled? With little time to spare, I rushed to the domestic side at Montreal Trudeau Airport to check in. The domestic Maple Leaf Lounge in Montreal was underwhelming. Aging interiors and a lackluster breakfast buffet didn't help, but at least it wasn't crowded. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the apron were a nice touch, adding light and a sense of space. My first leg was on a 737 MAX 8. Air Canada has 40 of these aircraft, seating 16 in business in 2-2 configuration and 153 in economy in 3-3. Besides this short hour hop to Toronto, they even use this plane between Halifax and London Heathrow, and everything else in between. Business class has recliner-style seats, which I'm really thankful that is the standard in North America, unlike in Europe, where airlines just block the middle seat and label it as business class. It's just much more comfortable and premium feeling. At your seat, you have an IFE screen, a literature pocket, and a footrest. Though I always found these types of footrests really awkward to use and prefer to just have my feet resting on the floor. The tray table slides out from the armrest, and there's seat adjustments for both your back and legs. There's also a storage area under the center armrest with a headphone jack and power. In-flight entertainment can be used in over a dozen languages and has a really large selection of media to watch. I do have to give credit to Air Canada where credit is due for always installing in-flight entertainment systems on board all of their mainline fleet, regardless of class of service. Even some of their Embraer E175s and CRJ900s from their regional Air Canada Express brand have in-flight entertainment. This is something that many US carriers like American and United skimp on. Soon after takeoff, a hot breakfast was served. Orange juice, bread, fresh fruit, and Air Canada's signature omelette. While simple, it was satisfying, especially for such a short flight. I'm looking at you, Asiana Airlines. With Toronto skyline in sight, we make our final approach and reach the halfway mark of today's unexpected detour.
In preparation for landing, please ensure that
I entered the transborder section for US bound flights. Here you clear customs before departure, making your arrival as a domestic passenger. The transborder Maple Leaf Lounge at Pearson was a big step up from Montreal's domestic lounge. The space felt modern, with ample seating and natural light. The buffet offered a much better variety in both hot and cold options compared to the previous lounge. The second leg to Chicago was on one of Air Canada's 33 Airbus A220-300s, which seats 12 in business in 2-2 and 125 in economy in 3-2. This time I was assigned in the bulkhead row. Business utilizes almost identical seats as the 737. The only discernible difference from the seat that I could notice from the MAX 8 was the IFE screen had physical buttons instead of haptic buttons and the addition of a USB-C port. Unfortunately, the IFE was stuck on a loading screen the entire flight and thus wasn't usable. After takeoff, the cabin crew handed out hot towels and served lunch. But when the meal arrived, I was puzzled. In front of me was chicken tenders with coleslaw. This reminded me more of something off the kids' menu or something served at a school lunch rather than business class catering. And everyone knows that fried foods don't fare well on planes, so I just had so many looming questions about the decisions over at Air Canada that resulted in this. Before landing, I visited the lavatory, which was clean but otherwise standard. We landed at O'Hare after what should have been a 2.5-hour trip turned into a 6-hour ordeal despite the initial stress. So what are my overall thoughts on today's performance by Air Canada? Had my original flight not been cancelled, I would probably have made it to Chicago with fewer gray hairs. However, I understand that airlines encounter a wave of issues daily, and flight cancellations are just a part of that. It's just something that happens in aviation, often for our safety. I'd rather have a flight cancelled due to maintenance issues than fly on a faulty plane, just like I'd rather have a flight cancelled for crew scheduling issues than fly on an understaffed plane, which can be dangerous in emergencies. But I think the airline did overall a good job recovering from the initial trip interruption. My new itinerary was sent to me swiftly, and in the grand scheme of things, I got to my destination 3 hours later than anticipated. The trip had its up and downs. The Montreal lounge and the chicken tenders were low points, but the excellent service on the second leg and the Pearson lounge redeemed the experience. Specifically on the second leg, the flight attendant who served me was super polite, referred to everyone by their last names, and was on top of drink refills. I paid 770 Canadian dollars, about $550 US, for a multi-city booking between Montreal to Chicago and Seattle to Montreal, all in economy. However, I placed a 140 Canadian dollar bid, the second lowest allowed amount, to upgrade to business on the Chicago segment. Despite the disruption, I fully expected Air Canada to cancel my bid and downgrade me back to economy. To my surprise, I stayed in business on both segments, making the bid feel even more worthwhile. At least it allowed me to relax and be more comfortable amid the stress and chaos going on in my mind. The lesson I learned in this video is that depending on your risk tolerance, it's a good idea to book your positioning flights the day before your award flight to avoid missing it. My original direct flight was scheduled to land at O'Hare at 10 a.m. and the JAL flight was scheduled to depart at 12:35 p.m. Had I booked everything on the same day, I would have had over 2 hours between my flights, which may seem like plenty, but if Air Canada's flight cancellation had happened on the same day, there's no way I would have made it in time for the JAL flight. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss my next video covering Japan Airlines' first class.